swallow you whole. I value my neck a lot more than $3,000, Chief. Find him for 3, but I'll catch him and kill him for 10. $10,000 for me by myself. For that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
You yelled shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Mr. Vaughn, I pulled a tooth the size of a shot glass out of the wrecked hull of the boat out there, and it was the tooth of a great white.
A what?
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Love to prove that, wouldn't you? Get your name into the National Geographic.
No, I'm not saying that this is not the shark. It probably is, Martin. It probably is. It's a man-eater. It's extremely rare for these waters. But the fact is that the bite radius on this animal is different than the wounds on the victim.
Get out of that boat!
Well, this is not a boat accident. There wasn't any propeller. There wasn't any coral reef. And it wasn't Jack the Ripper.
It was a shark.
I'll never put on a life jacket again.
Welcome back to the Jaws Obsession, where we are here to share with you, prove to you, convince you, or remind you that Jaws is the greatest movie of all time. Thank you very much for returning into the Jaws Obsession. Wow, what a break that was. And just because you haven't heard from the Jaws Obsession doesn't mean we haven't been busy here. We have a lot of new developments, and welcome now. We are going to be premiering the audiobook. The Book of Quint Audiobook premiere episode is what this is going to be titled, episode 86. When I started this project back in 2020, it would be August of 2020. That was when the research phase technically started into the writing, before the writing of the Book of Quint. So it's almost 4.5 years ago. And what I did was, one of the first things I did was I created that email. As you know, you can reach me here at jawsob2025@gmail.com. The reason why I chose that email was not only was 2025 going to be the 50th anniversary of Jaws. It's going to be coming up here on June 20th, 2025, which is going to be the 50th anniversary of Jaws in theaters around the world. Premiered there in June 20th, 1975. So I knew that was going to be the 50th anniversary of Jaws, but I had my sights set that there was something special was going to happen in 2025. And I just had a very strong feeling with the signals that I was getting, with the signs, with the visions that were happening through the research phase and the early inspirations into writing the Book of Quint, that there was going to be something very special in 2025. And as you saw, well documented here throughout the first, with these 85 episodes of the Jaws Obsession, we talked about many things possible that there was going to be, if possible, if Universal wanted to get started early, maybe they could have had a prequel to Jaws in 2025. Well, that has not happened. But what I think has happened is something that was never predicted. And that is what we're going to get into here. Is on this episode 86 is this audiobook for the Book of Quint, and the new campaign that we are launching that has already been launched on Instagram. If everyone follows the Jaws Obsession over at Instagram at Book of Quint, that's the Instagram page for the Jaws Obsession and the Book of Quint. But that's where all the latest and greatest that I can post there, and I can keep tabs. It's a simplified platform. I'm not on anything else with social media other than YouTube at JawsOB over at YouTube, which is, you're probably going to be watching this. This is now on with video. What we are kicking off here is the Watch Jaws Again for the First Time 2025 campaign. Watch Jaws Again for the first time. As this episode progresses, we're going to get into the intricacies of that campaign, because I feel that is the ticket to 2025, is to truly celebrate Jaws, is watch it again for the first time, utilizing this audiobook for the Book of Quint. It sets the standard for how I think going forward, how will fan bases as well as movie studios pay tribute or pay homage to legacy features and characters instead of jumping into the remake and reboot and these endless chains of sequels, which Jaws could probably be tracked to one of the franchises that was killed by sequels that didn't add up to the original. And that was one of the first probably dead franchises, or left for dead, that we are looking at here. Is it possible that if we turn to books, novels, if we have writers writing features or writing great stories, and that they are made into audiobooks, we then can watch that movie in the theater of our minds? And that's what we are doing here with the Book of Quint and Jaws. But what we're also showing is that how can a really well thought out, well planned, well researched prequel, can that add to the performances, and can that add to the impact of the feature film that we know so much, the original feature film? And that is where the Watch Jaws Again for the First Time campaign 2025 has its roots set there. So just what was the last 3 months like here at the Jaws Obsession? It's been unbelievable here at, if I sat down and told you, you probably wouldn't believe what I've gone through over the last 3 months. It's some part David Lynch movie, part crime thriller. It's absolutely it's something that that I never could have predicted. Now, I would have to say the last year here with the Book of Quint has been very stressful. I believe that spiritual warfare is a real thing, and when you are fighting to bring something good into this world, and you're inspired, and something calls you to go and step out of your comfort zone and into the creation world, where you are inspired to be an artist or a painter or a filmmaker or a producer, writer, actor, a business owner. There's when you're trying to do something that is when you are called to do something that you feel very strongly about, your negative forces will emerge and impact you. And that's what is going to try to derail things. And I've noticed ever since writing, even in the research phase and into the writing of the Book of Quint, made some of the minds that I have studied and listened to. Jack Grapes is one of them. He's a poet and he's also a writing instructor, but he has a couple of books out there. He talks about writing from the soul, writing from deep down, getting deep inside, and writing from that level. And when I was writing the Book of Quint, I feel that there was a door was opened to where I was receiving signals that this is how the story it was forming. I've said before that I don't feel I wrote the Book of Quint. I feel it was given to me and I just put it down. And so what you find in this novel is something that I never predicted. But when you are at that level of creation, a door is opened to where I think negative entities will try to come in and derail. And in my personal life, over the last 4.5 years, we have seen many situations, especially the last 2 years. It's been extremely crazy. You fall into a rut where the world seems to be coming down on you, and it's very it's very expensive. It's very stressful. That you want to just write creatively, but you cannot. There are things that have happened that have been very impactful and hurt, trying to stall the momentum of everything. And it's not really just the book. It's not just the book per se. It's also things in personal life. There's been, I don't know, have you ever seen the movie Stir of Echoes with Kevin Bacon? That's probably the closest I can describe what has been going on here over the last 3 to 4 months, maybe definitely the last 3 months. Definitely stir of echoes. We're talking right intense as that can be. And someday we'll be able to talk about all the details. And if I were to sit down and tell you, you probably would say, wow, this guy's got a great imagination, but it's not. This is real life, and this is real stuff that has been happening. And it only can be explained that when you open up that door at a spiritual level, I was trying to communicate from the heart, from the soul, with characters that these people really lived and died, like the men of the USS Indianapolis, and it's just, there comes a point where that I do feel that there is also negative spiritual activity that comes around. It all adds up to research for the next book. That's pretty much what it comes down to. It's that that you kind of what happens in life is all part of that drama that you can actually build on, and it makes you a better artist, a better writer, a better creator. And with all the things that are going on in this world, as we saw with the fires out in LA, and our support goes out to all those people that were devastated by those fires, that everybody everybody has their share of problems in this world. And what I have been going through here is nothing unique, that it is just one of the many stories that are out there. But I do strongly feel that art and writing and books and films and stories, it's what makes life tolerable, and that we need those going forward, especially in these times. So that is why you push on through those tough times, because I really feel there's something else building here. It's not just the Book of Quint. It's not just Jaws. There's something else that's there. There is another happening going on. I can't quite put my finger on it, but that's what the Jaws obsession is for. It's to document all of this and all of the little discoveries that are happening. This is a long time coming. This episode is almost as if it is a second chapter to the Jaws obsession. The audiobook is out. The Book of Quint has been out. If you want it in a traditional book format, if you want it in ebook, if you want it in audiobook, there's a way to get your hands on it. So everybody now has access. Everyone has access to this story. And now everyone can enjoy that. And that's where we were trying to get 1 year ago. We were trying to get to that, and it took us a little bit longer, but here we are. And this is exciting time. This is a very exciting time. This is the audiobook that almost never was. I can't say this exactly because budgets are never really made known for these types of things, but as far as I'm standing here, this is the most expensive audiobook that has ever been produced. The audiobook to the Book of Quint, narrated by Jonathan Waters. You can find it on every platform that's out there now. You can find it on Audible. You can find it on Spotify, Apple iTunes. You can find it on Kobo, anywhere, audiobooks.com, anywhere that you can find audiobooks, it is now available. So what happened was, the last 3 months, we had January 2025. I produced and directed the narrator, Jonathan Waters, and he narrated the audiobook. We had to re-record the audiobook. January was the recording and the production phase of the audiobook. Then that rolled into February 2025 when we through Amity Point Publishing, that's our publishing company here, we were able to publish that on Spotify, Apple, and all the other platforms, except for Audible. There was a stall with Audible. That was because I had to create a new ebook. Since the change of publishers, I had to start from scratch, and I had to create a new ebook file, publish that through Amazon. Once that happened, then I could actually publish the audiobook on Amazon with Audible. So that caused almost a month delay right there. It was 2 weeks to get the ebook up, and then another 2 weeks because you have to go through all the audio checks and everything that Audible requires. So finally, by March, we now have the new ebook was published, as you'll see the cover right here. The new cover, we have a new cover by Carl Loys, and you can find his link in the description below. I'm going to start including his link for his sites. We have he's helped us out tremendously by creating new graphics that you see, a new cover art, and so that was done there with the ebook. And then we went over to the audiobook side. As you'll see, this is the audiobook cover that you've been seeing around. The tagline, "Every legend has a beginning." So now we have the audiobook out on all platforms. Very exciting. It's a very exciting time. So that's what I want to formally introduce to you. This is the audiobook to the Book of Quint. It is the entire unabridged edition. It's the entire audiobook done by Jonathan Waters. He does all the performances himself, 22 different voices. It's 14 hours and 24 minutes long. And it is one of the best, in my mind. It is the highest level that we can. It's the highest level that we can take this project on our own here at Amity Point Publishing, here at the Jaws Obsession. This is exciting because, and that is what's leading us to the Watch Jaws Again for the First Time 2025 campaign, and that's what's making the 2025 so special. Is that for the next half a year, for the next few months, okay, before we get to the 50th anniversary of Jaws, we have about 3 more months and change here, is that you can now listen to the audiobook to the Book of Quint, and then that will roll in. This is nothing that I always thought that this was going to be marketing material that I was just going to feed over to Universal, should they ever make the prequel to Jaws. This is pretty much what the essence of a prequel would be. Now, I understand there's a lot of there might be some apprehension to a prequel to Jaws, and I understand the apprehension given that the turnout from some of the Hollywood companies lately hasn't been as ideal as we would have liked. But I feel that if you are still not on board with the Book of Quint and the Jaws obsession here, and there's various Jaws sites that have yet to, they're holding back. I know they don't want to acknowledge us sometimes here, but you are in that camp where probably around in the early 70s, and when Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo were going to announce that they were going to do Godfather 2, I'm sure there was a section of detractors that said, no, you cannot have a sequel to The Godfather, and no, you cannot have a Robert De Niro playing a young Vito Corleone. That's going to detract from Marlon Brando's performance of The Godfather. Just like we're hearing now, you can't have a prequel to the Jaws because that's going to detract to Robert Shaw's character of Quint, and that's extremely unlikely. In fact, what the Book of Quint, as you will listen in the audiobook, it actually adds to the character, it adds to the performance of Robert Shaw, because it makes his one-liners, his throwaway lines that we might have thought of as throwaway lines before, they actually they have more meaning. They have more impact now after you have a prequel to Jaws called The Book of Quint. So if you listen to this audiobook, then watch Jaws, you will see the movie in a whole different way, with new eyes, with new context, drawing that subtext out. And that is what we are going to say here. So if you ever encounter, if anyone out there, all the supporters of the Jaws obsession, if you're on a Jaws message board and someone says, oh, that's never going to work, that's going to take away from Robert Shaw's performance, you just bring that up and say, well, did Robert De Niro's performance of a young Vito Corleone in the prequel sections of Godfather 2, did that take away from Marlon Brando's performance in The Godfather? Absolutely not. It absolutely added to it. That's why Godfather 2 is considered one of the best sequels ever made. In fact, some people say it's better than the original. I don't believe that myself. However, with Robert De Niro playing a young Vito Corleone, we got that history, we got that context of how they started with the olive oil business and all of that going on, and that added to the mythos. It added to the mystique of The Godfather, of Marlon Brando's performance. So when you go back and rewatch Godfather 1, you're more invigorated. That's why that Godfather 2 was so impactful. Now, is that possible? If they were to do a feature film version of the Book of Quint, would that add to the mystique, that add to the performance, the impact of Robert Shaw's Quint in Jaws? I believe so. And my hope is that you will listen to the audiobook of Quint, and as Jonathan Waters brings Quint back to life here, with his excellent portrayal of these characters, that you will actually see you will watch this movie in your mind. This is a long time coming. The Book of Quint, this was a complicated and expensive production. I say this is easily the most expensive audiobook in history.
It's up there.
I'm going to go down swinging with that. But here we are in 2025. We're approaching the exact 50-year anniversary of Jaws, which will be June 20th, 2025, with the movie premiering on June 20th, 1975. And it's becoming the first summer blockbuster in history way back when. So 50 years on, and this is the official kickoff to our Watch Jaws Again for the First Time 2025 campaign. And it was this man who is on your screen's talents as an actor and audiobook narrator that made it all happen. It is apparent by the early reviews and comments from the Jaws obsession, the exceptional skill by Jonathan here. Those skills are on display in bringing Jaws fans around the world closer to the original movie, and Quint is once again alive with this audiobook of Quint. So I want to take this opportunity to welcome you, Jonathan Waters, to the Jaws obsession, and bring our audience closer to this movement, this project, by showing the history at work here, what we're going to do with this interview here, and thank you for coming on board here, and a little bit of what went on behind the scenes in 2025. So welcome to the show, John. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. I really appreciate it. And hello, everybody listening out there. I'm really excited to tell you about my process, for better or for worse. And I hope you enjoy.
This is great. This is great. I'm excited. It feels kind of nice to be here right now. What do you think? We had a few roadblocks and delays, right? And this is we're gonna with the audiobook is now on all platforms around the world: Spotify, Apple, Audible, Google Play Books, Kobo, and more. Just search Book of Quint or myself, Ryan Dacco, as the author, or Jonathan Waters here, Jonathan spelling Jonathan Waters, as a narrator, and you'll find it. So I want to start off, John. I want to start off here. Where did you get your acting inspiration and early training? Because clearly you are experienced in multiple forms of acting. So I wanted to kind of bring us all up to speed on what put you here at this time.
Well, let's start at the beginning, as I've always, decided to start things off. The acting bug hit me pretty young, but it wasn't necessarily like I want to be on stage. It mostly started as like having to decide on a career and like kindergarten or whatever. It was like, what do you want to be? And most kids were like astronaut, a firefighter, or a policeman, and whatever. And it just so happened that there was like a Lucky Charms box on the back and like on the back of it was a mask, like a little, Robin mask kind of a thing. And it was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, and it just like clicked of like all these people I'm watching in movies and TV shows and all this stuff, they're clearly getting paid. They're being celebrities. They get this money. They do all these things. Why do I need to decide to be a firefighter or this or that or whatever? I could be any of these by being hopefully a very highly paid individual who does all of them. So it became the like, I'm going to be an actor. And like, I could see the teacher being like, yeah, all right, cool. Like you're going to be making less than I do. So from there, it became like I was a tree in first grade. I was like a narrator kid for something in first grade. And it went on and on from there through high school of just being like, I want to do this. And whether it was on stage or in front of a camera, which was most of my time through high school and stuff, through like video broadcasting and those sort of classes, because why not? But going through in the college level, I mean, I've always loved voiceover work, animations and those sort of things, because I'm a huge Batman fan, if you look real close, you can see all my nerddom behind me, and my tattoos and whatever. But I like the animation side of it. And I was like, well, we can dabble in all these things. Why not? I'm knowing how to go on stage and things, and it's voice acting as opposed to voice acting.
Right.
Like,
right.
You want to be,
the audience. You're kind of, you're playing to a character. Instead of playing to an audience, you actually can get more intimate.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And you can kind of just do all the like grunt work, and it's your whole audience is like here and then suddenly in here. So it started off from there of like, well, if I get like a $60 mic and go to acx.com, which is still running very nicely, that's what I've been running with for the last while, and it started off paying like a bunch of dividends of like beer money to start off with while I was working on other stuff.
Sure.
And then until I moved to our current residence, was I doing full time? I mean, like, you know what? I've been doing books for a while and was like, you know what? Let's just make the jump. I'm gonna, see how it works. Right. Because at that time, like, COVID just hit. And I'd already been doing it, maybe a book every 2 months or so. And not one of your books, like ones that pay. These were ones being like, oh, hey, 5 people bought it. Being like, awesome.
Right.
And maybe I get a check. If it were that case, I'd have quit. I'd have been doing this way longer.
Sure.
But so COVID hit, and I took a gamble on myself and was like, you know what? We have this tiny little room in our house. And so I set up the stuff, made it happen. And then about a year and a half later, I joined the union because I was making enough money to do that. And so I've been just kind of laddering myself up to hopefully get to even higher and better sort of stuff. But it started off, as most things do, being like, man, I got to pay for some beer. How do I make this happen?
And you just balloon from there. And that's,
pretty much, weirdly enough, yeah.
Right.
And
well, that's the thing. It's like when you have a considerable skill like you have.
Thank you.
Did you notice that like once you got into the union, and that's one of the things that really was what we really were able to do with the Book of Quint audiobook was we made it a union production in a way because we were able to incorporate you and your talents. But did you notice that once you got in there, people started taking you a little bit more seriously?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's tough for us actor folks. And I don't claim to know every out and about because there's unions that are for like, plumbers and pipe fitters and this and that.
Yeah.
Where, if you're off doing the job, you're pretty much hired by X company and you just go do that for 40 hours, whatever.
Yeah.
Acting and performing and all that sort of fun stuff, you're like constantly auditioning. You're constantly trying to being like, hey man, I can do the job. I mean, like you're a little like this most of the time.
Yeah.
So you're constantly hunting, you're constantly doing that. And so you have to be able to maintain. And that's why us like actors probably, don't look a little more skeevy than we probably need to because we're just like, hey man, I gotta find the next thing. Where's the next fix? Where's the next gig?
Right.
So that we can keep on doing it. So we have to like hit those levels and also get paid to that particular level and perform to that level as well because you don't want to pay as much as you have to have someone being like, yeah, Quint, and then he said some shit.
Yeah, you get a little rundown, right? Burned out.
Yeah, you don't want this.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, you're right. There is a lot of respect that goes into, oh, you're a SAG person, neato, like as opposed to like, oh, you have a hobby. I'm like,
yeah, the hobby.
Fuck you.
So how many books have you narrated to date? Like that's what, to impress that you had a really extensive. You really hit the ball hard for the last couple of years.
So to date, I have about 350. If not a little bit more. I tend to do for the last 3 or 4 years, have tried to do at least 52 as just kind of a goal to be like, hey, let's knock one out a week. Okay. And, this is at least a 40-hour a week kind of gig with, weekends that are sometimes thrown in and whatever. So, that number builds up really quickly if I can just keep throwing myself out there.
Well, I'm telling you, it shows. Well, it shows the experience bleeds through the audiobook. That this was brought. It was brought to the table. That you brought to the table this experience in order to accomplish what I believe is the greatest audiobook performance of 2025. And I'm not. And I'm saying that some people might say I'm biased because I'm the author, but I really truly believe. I've listened to a lot of audiobooks. That's how I consume a lot of my reading. Because when I'm working out in the field as a lineman, that sometimes you don't have time to sit with a book and meditate over a page. You have to just get it into your head. And this was also there was an emotional attachment that you had to the material of a Jaws prequel. You needed to that emotional attachment that you have. You kind of need it to see through this process. So when we first communicated, it was kind of fate in a way. You explained your history with Jaws and Quint and your deep feeling that this was the moment you have been building towards. A chance to bring Robert Shaw's Quint back to life. The character was always in your wheelhouse in a way. Could you give us a history with your history with Jaws and with Quint?
Absolutely. I used to have, I was a 90s kid. When my mom would go off to like night school or whatever, my dad would sit me down and we would watch Jaws or Star Wars or any of these just movies on VHS and stuff. And he'd be like, let's watch Jaws and eat ribs. I'd be like, yes. And so after, me being 5 and whatever, being like, let's do this. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I knew Jaws and from a very young age and loved it and have continued to love it. And then I got into like high school and things, and they were like, hey, we need you to find a monologue. And I was like, what the hell is a monologue? And someone suggested like the beginning of like Highlander, and I'm like, it's not long enough. And then I think my dad suggested, well, what about the Indianapolis speech from Jaws? And I was like, okay. And so, printed it out and read it and
Right.
went through it, watched his performance, did my own, and mostly copied because, I'm like,
Sure.
14, 13, middle school or whatever.
Yeah.
And I memorized it. I still got it up here, the whole thing,
It's
Japanese
amazing, but it's
I have it.
But you were like, so it's like this was building from such a young age, and that's what was so amazing about this. It was building, and here comes this chance to actually be in a prequel to read the prequel to Jaws.
Right.
And
well,
it's amazing.
and that happened a year-ish plus ago. We'll get to that history, I guess.
Sure,
But
yeah.
I got a thing, an email, as us narrators do, being like, hey, can you audition for this? And it was like, they give you the specs of like, here's how long it is, here's the title, here's who wrote it, and here's the summary. And it was Book of Quint. I'm like, okay, that could be anybody, but
Yeah.
we're like 50% potentially a Jaws thing, and then the first like 2 words of like the USS Indianapolis, and I went, oh shit! And then so I literally saw the audition, like cleared my throat,
Right.
drank my whole tea, went and just did the audit, like read the first page and stuff, and was like, this is fucking rad. I need to get. If I don't get this is fine, but I have to at least try. And I knock it out, and it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. So it's the first like email I see. And I ran upstairs to my wife, and I was just like, Laurel, I just auditioned for a Jaws thing. It's written by this Ryan Dacko guy. Like, I don't know. Here we go. And she was like, good job. You're going to do great. And then like ran downstairs and like did 2 more emails, and I get an email from you.
That's right.
And I'm like, oh, this is irregular. Like, I never get, especially from that particular company. We never talk to the authors. Every other place they're like, you go, John, here's all my characters. And like this one was out of left field of like, thank God I get to talk to this dude. And maybe he's just like, you have sullied my work and I fucking hate you. But no, like, I was so glad to be like, I want you, dude. And I'm like, oh, well, that's the quickest turnaround I've ever had. So I was ecstatic from the get-go. And dude, like, it's not my favorite chapter, but like what hooked me always, and I've told you this, and now I'm telling the world, like chapter 2, the one where we first get the inside of the white tip.
Yeah.
I was like, the rest of this book can be just misspellings and in crayon. I want all of this.
Right.
So I loved it. And I'm so glad to be a part of it, because now with the Benchleys being like, hey, good job, dude.
Yeah.
I'm a teeny tiny part of Jaws history.
Yes.
And
yes.
so it's full circle. It's amazing for me. I'm so happy for this.
And it shows, and the passion that you're showing right now. It shows, because we're gonna go play for right now. We're gonna go play the first of the 3 teaser trailers we debuted on the Book of Quint Instagram page. So Instagram.com/Book of Quint. Links are in the description of this broadcast. This is a simple 30 seconds. This was the first one. It was just 1 line of dialogue from the book, but it brings Quint to life in the mind's eye. So let's check that out right now.
Listen to me. We all have to fight the ocean in our own way. Our bodies are different, but spirits are strong. Every man's body lets him down. It's only a matter of time. Some sooner, others later. Knowing that it may happen tomorrow, but still standing at the helm and taking to the sea, that's bravery, Herschel. What you did today was fight. You did everything your body allowed, and that's all I can ask for.
Early fan reactions to that video was everyone was impressed with the Quint voice. It seems it seems that the proper cadence of Quint is recreated here. What were your challenges, if any, when approaching the voice of a young Quint? Did you have any prep work, or did you need anything or did that Quint voice just fall naturally into place as you move through the chapters?
Well, I mean, I'm very fortunate again to have Jaws and Robert Shaw to be able to pull from,
Sure.
to be able to watch and be like, okay, here's how it goes. And I know he's not necessarily a Eastern speaker, but he had you can just take those cadences, those vowels, those how sharp is he? What is he? Is he raspy? Is he this? Is he that? And you just kind of start playing with it. It's a lot like an impression almost in sort of way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to begin, I mean, shark. The word shark was probably my hook line in the smallest of senses. There's a ton of them, but you have shark. You have that long, almost diphthong of a, and you have this like hate almost attached to it.
Right.
And then you just pick all your little lines and stuff that I love from Quint to being like, "Don't you tell me my business again," and how quick he is about one thing or another.
Yes.
And so for me, it was like for getting to the older Quint, the one that's in part 2 and 3, it was easy enough just to kind of sit back and just kind of let Shaw come out of me as best I can.
Right.
And it's weird because as a theater actor, I always get the thing of being like, "You're too big," and it's fine. I understand because my audience is here. But for this, like, you could be just kind of mumble mouth. You don't have to enunciate so much. You can almost run it, as quick as you can. Because I had to have captions on a couple of times to be like, "What did he actually say here?" Being like,
sure, right, yeah, that's a
"Bluegill stingray, don't you tell me my business again," that sort of thing, and it just runs. But to starboard, come on, like that sort of thing.
Right.
But luckily, I don't have like such a crazy voice that isn't, I don't talk up here most of the time.
Right.
I'm mostly, somewhere
You
in
have a
that
lower
range.
register, and that's actually what I first zeroed in on when I was listening to the samples of different narrators, and I was just happened upon you, and you had a couple of audiobooks. One was a baseball player book, and then and then also another was a Navy history book. So I could tell from the narrator voice that you had that a natural lower register. So I really truly believed you could have gone there. And then when I heard this, I couldn't believe my ears. I said, "This is exactly what this book needs." So that's why I said I really do believe that this book could not have been performed by anybody else in the world but you, Jon. And
Thank you. I appreciate
really
it.
do believe that. And that's why I'm so happy that we with the published product that the fans and the Jaws obsession and the Jaws fans of the world and people of fans of great audiobooks are actually getting to hear this, because it is an experience, and we're going to get more to that in a little bit. But that's what I'm saying is that, and people can hear in this interview just how you can switch back and forth. It's almost like you can toggle back and forth from Jon voice to Quint voice to narrator voice. It's uncanny.
It's so good.
It really is.
I did this. I mean, I wanted to be a part of it, obviously, but it was something along the lines of like, what would I want to hear if I was listening to this from someone else? And if they didn't at least try a Quint voice to be somewhere this grizzled, whatever you want to call it, Quint,
right?
Why would I ever want to pick it up? Because if someone had just been like, "Ah, yes, Herschel, come on," like, it's a fine, but you gotta sit with it a bit,
right?
And you gotta get rough. Not as rough as some of these other characters.
Yeah.
But,
but see, that's the thing with when and I want everyone to know that this would and then Jon, I think you would agree that when I say that this was an audiobook, this process for this audiobook, for the Book of Quint, was unlike any other audiobook for many reasons. But the process to get this done was a very long journey. Jon had to perform this audiobook twice. Okay, so due to a change in publishing companies, we had to produce and re-record the entire audiobook for a second time in January of 2025. almost a year after his first attempt. So the second go around reached publication in February of 2025, and that's what you can hear on all the platforms. That's the version of the Book of Quint audiobook. It's actually Jon's second attempt at recording. So I think you are in top form in the second version. You probably don't, and you yourself probably don't get a chance to get a second shot at re-recording an audiobook. I don't know why you want to at 14 hours and 24 minutes. I don't know if you want to do that to many audiobooks.
Ideally, we don't.
Right.
Unless it's like the Bible and being like, all right, pay it again.
But I remember when I came to you and I broke the news, I said, listen, we got to record this over again. And I said, my example was Broadway actors do this all the time. They do it 7 times a week. You know, we can do this. We can do this. And maybe not 14 hours, but it's almost as if you sit with the performance and then you can do it again. And then, so my question here is, did you find that you grasped the material, that your grasp of the material was elevated with this delay? I mean, maybe were there some advantages in letting the book simmer in your mind almost for a year and then performing it again from start to finish?
Well, yeah. I mean, I will fully admit that most of the time, for any reading I'm doing, this makes it sound like I have like the biggest audiobook dick. I don't necessarily have the time to pre-read a lot of the stuff. Now, on the other side of that, and before you get your pitchforks and things, I get to most of the time work with the author and being like, hey man, like, here's only the couple of things I really need to know. What are your characters? What are these? What are that?
Right.
I can go back and re-edit being like, oh, I should probably be this way through, these more harrowing moments or whatever. But it speaks to you as an author, man, like going from the first bit, like, I don't want to say you're being dragged by the nose by it, because that makes it sound like, but you're like led there being like, all right, here we go. It's going to, doesn't this get shitty being in the water? Oh my God. Like, we're going to breadcrumb from, the crate to this tiger shark to Tony to Troy to all of this little things that make it go like, oh yeah. By the end of it, you're like sharks and everything that they do. Wow. But it speaks to your writing. And yeah, whenever you revisit something, whether you rewatch Jaws for the 100th time or the second time, you're like, oh yeah, this, oh that. I missed the star in the background, or oh, this guy in the background means this, whatever. But getting a second bite at the apple. And I believe I was telling you this while we were, I don't know if we can talk about what went down. It wasn't fun.
Yeah.
But when things were like, you know what, we're just going to do this. I was already like, I'll do it again if you'll have me. I'll do it for free, which I probably should have kept that down. But I get a second bite at the apple, and I lucked out because I kind of re-listened to little snippets of my older performance, and I'm really hoping that for this one in particular that Herschel is pretty consistent, because that's the hard part about audiobooks, is keeping consistency from point A to point B. In a commercial, it's 30 seconds or 2 hours in like a studio or whatever, and usually you can maintain being like, buy this, come on, it'll be fine. But as far as an audiobook goes, you have to know these characters, at least in here, to be able to pull them out. Because all of a sudden, if you're doing Little Orphan Annie and she suddenly sounds like, a Bumble or some such, I don't know,
right?
Bob Zomad, like you fucked up a little bit. So you have, but it's also a marathon. It's an audiobook, 14 hours for this.
Sure.
And especially for that middle part 2, being mostly from Herschel's perspective, that was a big challenge. But getting a second bite of that, and I noticed an inconsistency from chapter, I think it was like 19 to chapter 40. I was like, ooh, I settled a little bit, because in my voice, you'll start being like really grizzled, and then by hours and hours later, not in one day, everybody, but you start to get like, hey man, maybe it'll be easier if I just do this instead of that, for the example of being like, it was a dark and stormy night, as opposed to it was a dark and stormy night. One is way easier to do and maintain depending on how you're going about.
Is there like a muscle fatigue when you have like you have to hold your jaw in a certain way if you do that? Because I heard like some actors, like it was described to me that people that are multi languages, like bilingual, they'll use different muscles in their mouth for one language, and then a whole nother section is for another language, and so they get almost fatigued because they're not used to using those muscles. Is it fatiguing?
I believe it. Yeah, I for sure. But I also like to talk, so
Okay.
it all kind of works out. But I like the last couple of weeks, for one reason or another, I had a piece of my jaw just be like, "Ooh, this sucks to talk for like 4 or 5 days." And of course, there's vocal fatigue where you get
Yes.
glottal fries and all those
Right.
fun little things where you take a voice class, you'll know all about them, and you try to avoid
Yeah.
or to use them to your advantage when you need to for doing characters and things.
Right.
Because reading a textbook, you're just going to be doing your own sort of voice, whereas doing Book of Quint, you want to hear the voices. You want to experience these things.
Right.
You want to be on the ORCA with Quint and Herschel. You want to be there. So the more, versatile or whatever I can be as best I can, I got to be. Now there are nights that I'm just like, hey, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like, and it just is what it is, and you just hydrate as best you can. Even though you might have seen me drink a Boston Lager over here, I, I definitely drink as much good fluids as I possibly can over here because you got to keep the instrument running. And if I don't talk, I don't eat.
Any secret like apple cider vinegar or anything? Any like kind of secret? Because I kind of, when I do my podcast, I can actually see I'm not trained like yours, so my voice actually starts going down and down and down until I'm like a gravelly mess by the end.
Well, that's natural. So
Yeah.
you just kind of, for me, it becomes theater work of like try to push from your diaphragm a bit more to
From inside.
get more air to go through. Otherwise, from that, it's mostly just warming up and making sure you're not drinking milk or like
dairy or
grape
dairy.
juice,
Yeah,
or
okay.
something. But water and maybe just a teeny bit of lemon, tea with honey, that sort of thing works out marvelously. And humming, like for warming up and things like that. You don't want to start operatic. If you really want to, you just start hum like a Johnny Cash song or something. Nothing too crazy hard. And then after you start to get some that sort of thing. And then you start giving it full voice so that your voice gets a moment to be like, you don't wake up falling out of bed and being like, all right, time to do.
Right. You gotta get it. You gotta build
I
up.
got to do Hamilton in 5 minutes.
Well, I think that's where, I'm telling you, I have to express to the listeners and to the viewers out there that Jon pulls off 22 different voices in this audiobook. And that's just speaking roles that are like major speaking roles, 22 different voices. It's more if you count the one-off lines and stuff. But 22 different speaking roles. This is why I'm regarding this as an audiobook of the year. And your transitions to each voice is seamless. Like you record, and we know you recorded this in your home studio. And I'm in New York, so we had this process where what you would do is you would record a chapter or a few chapters and you would post them up to a Google Drive, and then I could then download those, and then I would listen to those, and I would go over with my with the Book of Quint. I would go sentence for sentence. I would listen to Jon, and if there were any notes, I would make some notes, corrections or whatever, and then I would send them back to Jon. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to give you. I didn't want to be stifling. In a way, I was directing the audiobook, and I wanted to give you freedom to create. So I loved seeing the little discoveries that you had there, and I wanted to ask you, like, when you did record the character voices, because I've always wondered this. Did you record straight through, or did you separately record them and then combine them in editing?
So here's how. This is how the sausage gets made a little bit. So if you want the
if you
magic
don't want
to
to
be
reveal that,
spoiled for you, like you jump ahead like 2 minutes. So what I have for you in terms, I just have one track. And so I can stop that track anytime. I can go back, I can remove, I can blah, 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 blah. But I do not have like an extra track that says Quint. I don't have a Quint that says Herschel. I don't have a thing that says, anybody.
Right.
It's just me. So, there is like a little bit of a magic in there being like, oh, he just did that all in one take. No, let me assure you I didn't. Like if I sent you like the GarageBand thing that I have on here being like, oh, he fucked up a lot. Like it's just is what it is. but I can move things around to sound better, be closer to a particular sentence, or draw something out to make that moment last a little bit longer. But as far as me doing the voice thing, I don't really hop around too much. I might stop and look at my little notepad here of like, oh yeah, what, okay, how was,
Right.
and pause. But that's maybe 10, 20 seconds, depending on if I'm like, where the hell did I put this? And that's it. If I'm going higher, lighter, lower, deep, raspy, terrible,
Right.
this, that, blah, blah, blah. So I do just kind of straight through in its own sort of way. Punch and roll is what I would call it for this, or in the professional terms, where if I mess up, I will just, move back, take it from there, redo the sentence, and move on, and try to match the previous sentence to that one so that it sounds as seamless as I
Yeah,
probably
it's
can.
unbelievable. But also like how you toggle back and forth. Like if you could be in Quint's voice, and then you jump back into another, like your narrator voice, or to Herschel narrating as well, if it's like a line, and then you say he said.
Right.
Right. So did you do
Right.
all of those? Like, would you do that? Like where you would be doing Robert Shaw, and then you would jump in your narrator that he said.
Well, I wouldn't stop by all the means. It'd probably be just, but it's one sort of thing. I wish I had the manuscript in front of me, but being
Wow.
like,
Because
but if I had something like Quint being, are you listening to the Book of Quint right now? He said, and that'd be it. It'd be the easiest thing in the world, and for me at least, to just but there's a muscle memory in there.
Yeah.
There's a, with me knowing what I kind of can do and what I want to do and what
Right,
sounds
okay.
good to my ears.
Right.
So it's not like line, he said,
Mhm.
and then move on. I don't have the time for that, and
Right,
I'm
right.
mostly just like, on some level, it just move, like, which sounds a little less magical. Of like, I I just pulled him from the grave and brought him in here, as
No,
much as I would love to do that.
No, it works. That's what I'm saying. That's where the ability and the skill comes in, is that toggling back and forth. And when everyone listens to the Book of Quint, it's that seamless transition that allows you to immerse into the story and watch the movie in your mind.
Right.
That is what's so important here, is that some of the difficulty is when you're dealing with books and they translate over into the audiobook world, is that if there's too many he said, he asked, he replied, and that will bog you down. And narrators have a way of saying, like, he said, he, like, really quick after the end of the sentence, in order to get through that so it doesn't bog it down. But I remember writing that, and consciously writing the Book of Quint in almost a way a screenplay was written, that would have I would try to narrate, I would try to almost structure the conversation so it's person A and person B talking to each other, and then therefore if someone asks a question, you already in your mind already know that that person's answered. I don't have to say Quint answered, because you know
Right.
he's asking Quint, right? So so it worked out. It just works out. It's just amazing. So
Thank you.
I'm over the moon by this whole thing. This is such a joyous time, and it was such a long time coming. So I want to go into the second teaser trailer. And it's funny that we were talking about Herschel Salvatore, because the second teaser trailer was all about Herschel Salvatore and Quint's first mate, that Jon brings to life in a very unique way, and adds in an all new dimension, a new dynamic for all of us to rewatch Jaws with this new dynamic. And it's just truly amazing. And this kind of this teaser trailer captures what we're talking about when we say rewatch or watch Jaws again for the first time in 2025, because this Mr. Salvatore Herschel there never really had a voice. He was just always seen in the background following Quint around. So here's Jon giving life to Herschel Salvatore.
My name is Herschel Salvatore. I was born on Amity Island, and I'm gonna die on Amity Island. Been nowhere but here. Amity Island is what I know. I'm one of the last people who can tell you there were always big sharks off Amity, until he arrived. Before him, the sharks of Amity were just legends, myths. He made them real.
It's a unique book consisting of 3 parts, each with their own point of view. Part 1 is in the third person, and that gives way to part 2. It's told in the first person from Herschel, and then back to part 3, which is a hybrid of third and first person. Narrating this novel was going to require a command of not just the character voices, but the tonal dynamics and the cadences of the different characters to pull it off. I really believe that there will not be another audiobook performance like this year. And the pressure that you were under while performing this audiobook, you're expanding the Jaws universe, and you have an army of Quint fans out there with a very high bar that was set. And Jon, I gotta say, you just nail it. You nail it in so many ways.
Thank you.
And but it's just, I remember writing this, and it was just, that's the way to me the story had to be presented. But when the topic of audiobook was in my mind, I was always wondering, like, how is that going to translate? Because I've not heard a narrator with the skill set that you've had. I've heard of guest narrators. Like, you could get a celebrity to come in and narrate, but then you're just hearing Michael Douglas perform,
Right.
So Salvatore, or something like that. And then we were talking about the Herschel voice, and one of those things that you were able to master is that, and I need to stress that everybody that in part 2 of the novel, there's an 80-year-old Herschel is narrating. And it switches back to when he's talking about when a 19-year-old Herschel meets Quint. So what Jon has to do is he has to actually perform a 19-year-old Herschel, and we actually grow with Herschel, and Jon changes his voice. People have written to me, people have come up to me, they've said it's just amazing that that what they're hearing. It's almost, it takes them a while to actually digest exactly that this is the same guy. This is an unabridged audiobook, one narrator performing this whole thing. And was this as challenging to perform as it sounds when I break it down like this? Or did this come, when you perform Herschel and you toggle back and forth between old and young, what were the challenges that you had to face here?
Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate it. Please keep writing. If you enjoyed this book, please leave reviews. That helps us out a ton. It was challenging because it was one of the few books that I've ever had to that I had to do basically a POV of Herschel for a good third of the book, if not a little bit more. Because usually I'm just doing this. This is the narrator voice. But for Herschel, we have him start off with just, my name is Herschel. What is his last name? I can't remember. Salvatore, that's right. Yeah. My name is Herschel Salvatore. And I got to thinking about it a little bit before doing all of this, and was like, where did this kind of voice come from? And it came, obviously I stole from the original actor, who was the kind of like
Herschel
assistant Herschel of Quint, but his voice was a bit more, I don't know, I want to say more 50s actor-esque, of like what it sounded like for anybody who was like, now you're gonna be on TV, kid. And it was kind of one of these being like, no, miss, but it did have that very Eastern flair to it, of like, Mr. Quint, I'm not gonna do it anymore, I'm just not gonna do it. And you can do whatever you want. I'm just not gonna, I'm tired of this bullshit. And then that's really and that's that deleted scene, I think, that you will only ever hear him. Otherwise, he's like just following behind. So I got to thinking about it while I was thinking about this, and like, where did Herschel's voice come from? And all of a sudden I was like, this came from Conan the Barbarian a little bit. Mako, of his voice of, and I was like, did that come from that? And I'm like, yeah, it kind of did. And the line that sticks in my head, other than like, the line that sticks in my head is the like, my lord was like a dog that had been kept too long, and it, not quite Mako, but it was, that sort of thing of like, oh shit, that's exactly what I just told that, and I just made this, and you can see yourself almost like almost repainting a room, like, oh yeah, that's how I did that.
That's fantastic.
So that's where that kind of started. But we get Herschel old first, and then we go young, which is almost easier in a way, especially if you start as like gravelly, almost chess player or person in the bar who's like, he always comes here, but he only orders the one thing. It's that apricot brandy and stuff.
Yeah.
And and so you kind of have that like, oh, we should listen to this dude. So there has to be a little bit of gravitas, a little bit of something that is listened to. But there's also this character who's he followed his hero, his father figure, for decades until he was like, I can't do it anymore, and that's when he's gone, dead.
Right.
And then we have 40 years of Herschel or 30 years of Herschel being like, well, now what?
Yeah, right. On the island by himself, right?
Right. No ORCA, no nothing. But Shaq, I guess.
Yeah.
But so you can, for me, it was easier to go old, do the old. Now this was my captain. This was Mr. Quint. You could go as hard as you want. And I think what I did with the first time through, which nobody will hear but us, was I went way too hard with it until halfway through the recording thing. I kind of settled with what you guys hear now and on Spotify and Audible and all this, which is what you hear. And I love it. I love doing it. But at first, you're right. It was a challenge because who can do that for that long?
Right.
And just tell that story.
Because that's what makes it work, is that you have to be the point of view doesn't work unless it's an older man, and yet the same narrator is with the Indianapolis stuff. You have gravitas narrator, and that's what was worrying me, was how is anyone ever going to be able to pull this off? And it's just and you do, and that's the thing. When you bring up the Conan the Barbarian, it's amazing that you're revealing that here, because that's exactly the tone that I wrote that one chapter routine in.
Right.
And so it began. My captain's hunt with
till the ocean sank Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Arius, there was an age undreamed of.
That's exactly it.
And unto this Captain Quint, destined to sink with the ORCA from a fucking shark.
That's exactly the tone. That was exactly, because it was that whole that when the Conan is in the pit.
Yeah, that's exact. When they let him go.
That was like, it was like, to me, if they're gonna film a movie, Steven Spielberg would have the montage sequence of here's Herschel and Quint going through the motions, and
hopefully with a Basil Polidorus music too.
Wouldn't that be
a lot of tinking?
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. But it came to me while I was walking in the backyard with the dogs and things. I was like, oh my God, I came with this. Like, I'm a smarter actor than I think I am.
Fantastic.
But it did come with its own challenges, because I did have to hop through. But to say that, like, I had to do it. To do it in my regular voice of I am Herschel Salvatore, and then suddenly hop into Herschel throughout the thing of doing the young Herschel, which is take out all the gravel and put in all this naivety and put all this young and spiritedness of like, innocence, I'll do it. I'm scared, but let's do this.
Yeah.
And then just put that together. So it goes from like
Luke Skywalker.
It kind of is, honestly. Like it really is like I want to go to Amity Point and get some power converters. Like come on. Suddenly goes from that to 80 of like, now if I'd have gone and just went and got those fucking power converters, things have been different. But I'd have hated every second of my life. That sort of thing. But I had to have him like young and wanting, and a lot of this comes from the writing. That's the foundation of this whole thing. I can only do so much. I can only bring more to life, hopefully, what is already kind of on the page. I can help, and obviously getting directed is very, very nice, because again, you've been doing all the Jaws research. I've been just kind of henpicking here and there about, oh, that's an interesting detail. Oh, they thought about shooting the Kintner death this way. Neato. Deep cuts, man. Like I remember early conversations with you of like, good God, this is the guy. Like, I thought I was like, people in this town, and it's not very big, are like, he likes Jaws. He's the Jaws guy. And I'm like, yes, I am. You're the person I go to the mount, right? Like right below fucking Spielberg or some such, being like, so what was it like? Was it fun? And he's like, no.
Right.
But, you know, that's something to be said. Like, I can only build the house of, or the Book of Quint with the pages and the words and the things that are there.
Yeah.
I can flourish them. I can do this and that. I can play the notes, and hopefully I make the music to it. But if it's not on the page, I can't say the word.
Right.
I can't
just
say
like
the
you tapped into that creative vein that the book was written in. It was that love for Jaws.
Right.
It was that let's just get right into the movie and extract all the details out, and then create and then flesh it out, and then see there's this soul of this story, and
Absolutely.
you just fed right into that. And that's what I love, that that this is happening in real time. That people are listening to this in real time. This is 2025. 50 years later, I don't think any of this is a coincidence. I just think creative energies they never disappear. They're always there, and they might become a little stagnant, but they always come back. Burst in big circles and stuff. So yeah. But I just think this is a huge moment. The audiobook of Quint is that big step in just the creative energy that was around the tragedy that was that production. And
yes.
No, that
Right.
Steven Spielberg tapped into this creative energy, and it was even the same thing with even what Peter Benchley experienced writing writing Jaws.
Right.
That he had problems there, and the editor was like, "Oh, this is not good," and then he had trouble finding a title, and so he had his own problems in the writing, and then Steven Spielberg with this and all that, and then here we are with obviously this has been well documented with my trying to bring this story to the world, and now we have this audiobook that just so happens that it just couldn't be a prequel of Jaws without a little bit of drama. So
Right.
So and then we experienced that, and you cut right through it. It's pretty amazing. I want to stay on the voices.
Of course.
There's another voice that stands out. It's one of my favorites. It's chapter 40. It's Nako Nolan. I don't want to do any really spoilers for anyone that hasn't listened, but this is going to be that it's an amazing chapter that jumps from the speakers right at you. There's tension bleeding out of the earbuds with this Nako Nolan's chapter, and I wanted to ask you, what did you build on to create this Nako Nolan's voice? It's just, to me, it's amazing.
So, well, I mean, we get the fun job of narrators, and in a weird way, we get less stuff to play with, but we get so much more that we can kind of get away with in a way. And in this, and it might sound bad, it might sound like smackting or bleh, whatever, but you can pull caricatures of characters out. And I'm not saying that Nako Nolan is, just a dime a dozen, whatever, but you can start kind of building on something like that. So for that, I had to Nako Nolan. He's incredibly tough. He's probably the only guy that Quint fears potentially, or just doesn't want to deal with.
They're like equals. I always saw them as equals,
Right.
like they grew up together. So there's these equals that were, it's almost like as much as they both, as much as Nako Nolan was a Boston underworld crime lord, he still sees Quint as an equal.
Right.
And it's probably nobody else. That's why everybody it's to me, there's a great energy there. That's where the tension comes from. And you zeroed in on that.
So the tension there, of course, is there's history, as you will see in the book.
Yes.
But to create the character of him, you sent me a bit from The Departed of like, here's kind of what I'm wanting.
Yeah.
And I, for my part, was looking at what Amity is, what Boston is.
Yeah.
Amity's this forgotten town, at least at most of this point in the book. But we go to Boston, and we have someone who commands a lot of respect, has his own place, has a place that's rocking and rolling on St. Patty's Day, as Quint tells us. Sorry, spoiling the book, I guess. But
no, that's not.
but we had to have like a little that thickness, that gravitas of it, that there's a comparison between him and Quint. But we have to have not quite an antithesis necessarily, because we don't want him to be tough and feared, and someone you'd be like,
Right.
I don't want to run into him in like a dark alley, or even a sunny one for that matter. So what does that voice sound like? So I took a bit from your suggestion from the dude from The Departed, the bartender there, that there's an ease there. There's almost a lesson to be taught there. as in the speech that he has. But I also took from Daniel Day-Lewis's Bill the Butcher from Gangs of New York.
Fantastic.
So I wanted him to have his moments of just like confidence of like,
Yeah.
I'm established.
Yeah.
And I've killed people.
Yeah.
And so there's this, Bostonian, not as best as I could, Bostonian accent, Quint. You're doing this. But I wanted where Quint would be more emotional, where he would be, like, down, padded, stop, let's go. Oh, give me him. Like, you'll see that, that there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
Whereas Nako Nolan, I wanted him, and it's written in there pretty well, but you could take it either way. I wanted him to be kind of the polar opposite, where you have like flame versus this ice cold. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the intensity isn't necessarily there. And there's the difference between intensity and volume.
Right.
So Nako Nolan can level you with a couple of whispered words and like whatever. And I wanted that so that there was this fun power play between the two. In different ways, and see where they change and break and how they meet each other. Like I was saying with caricatures, like you can go, like if I had Nako Nolan being like, like the high pitched Pirates of the Caribbean, big bearded guy you see in the third one, like it doesn't play.
Right.
If I had him have something similar to Quint, I wouldn't mind it, but then you get lost in your own ears.
Yep.
So I just had to go quieter and darker.
Right.
But in your own ears, you can almost picture someone being like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
Like this is the voice that stops things.
Yeah.
And whether win, lose, whatever you want to call it, for Quint in this, Quint is our hero. You gotta have to have him kind of in the middle of that, the center post in a way. So for Nako Nolan being as dark. And as but he's you can almost picture that as a dark alley being like, kill him, boys, and not care,
right?
Because he's done it. There's this, almost like Quint has all these like throwaway lines, but they're so rambled together, they're run-on sentences almost. Whereas Nako is quiet, and it is enunciating. But I wanted to go that way with him, to instill the fear in your ears as well as to build in your own mind of like, I've known people to have that voice. How do you build that voice from going from cradle to this? What life does someone have to go through to get that?
You can put the history into just a delivery of a line can actually have history in past, like his whole life about how he delivers that. And that's what the nuance here is.
Absolutely.
Next level stuff that you're doing is that you're playing it in. I think this is the height of what audiobooks can do. It's this borderland between the written page and cinema is where you're actually playing to the camera, to the microphone, and you're actually playing to the camera in the cinema that's in our minds. So we're watching this, and I know that it would be, I've heard other audiobooks where it's a temptation for narrators to go more and embellish and almost not especially if you're a stage trained actor, like you're playing for on a stage, but you were so good at pulling it in and like internalizing some of these things, so where it's just so quiet and so there the tension is actually increased because the volume comes down, and that's what you did, right?
Well, thank you so much. But that is kind of the pull of both sides, because there's always that thought of like you're a stage actor or a film actor, and you can be both. But there is like you were hitting it on the head of like there's a technique to it almost. There's a way to go about it, because yes, as on stage, you have to be able to, even without a microphone or with one, you have to be able to make sure that the person in the back goes, "I hear you, Dave." Whereas film, it's what people are seeing right now. Any emotion that I'm putting out there, any little bit, it's so nuanced, it's so whatever, but it's so small that it's sometimes this middle world here, which in my opinion is, it leans better for me if you are a bit bigger, if you are a bit big, which also works out in that way that you can always pull back. It's a lot harder to be like, give me a cough. Can you give me more?
Right.
Okay. As opposed to like, I don't know, you go big first and be like, Be like,
Yeah.
we need a 5. And be like, oh, okay. Gotcha, bud. So it's so much easier to pull back than to I'd rather be huge
Yeah.
and then be like, hey man, like, we know you can do the job, but
Mhm.
oh, okay, sorry.
I think Naco Nolan's at one point when Naco's talking about he's like always chasing the damn marlin and thinking you were going to win the sweepstakes
marlin.
and like you say like sweepstakes with like a chuckle under your breath like he's looking at his
You're
henchman.
gonna win the well. I mean, I have all these movies to pull from, and then you have like you just add your own smugness on top of it of being like, well, how do these mafioso guys do it? Because I don't live on the East Coast. Okay, let's pull from that, and then let's be like, what if I just know I'm winning and it just comes out of this filter, and you have that like. Oh, you and the damn marlin. All these sweepstakes. You just keep trying.
Yeah.
You can't stay down, Quint. Or even better, like, what that sort of thing.
But that's what I'm saying is like that's what I'm saying is that you paint a visual with just the delivery of that line.
And, I have to.
And that is just high level narration, acting. This is that's why this audiobook, to me, it's the best audiobook of 2025. And we're going to go through the nomination process. We're going to try to get nominated. We'll see what happens. I'm putting it all in there. I mean, I'm the publisher, so it's up to me. I'm going to just submit everything, But
I'd love to get an Audi for it. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely. I defy another audiobook narrator to come up with such a complicated performance to such a complicated book that this year. And it really is amazing. And I'm excited that people are getting the chance to hear it. And the feedback is phenomenal. One more voice I want to get to is we can't move on from voices without mentioning the young selectman, Larry Vaughn.
Oh, Larry Vaughn.
I
mean,
right.
I had all the things to pull from him, man.
Well, the benefit we had we had Murray Hamilton, right? That played an older Mayor Vaughn in Jaws. So what cues did you learn from Murray Hamilton when performing the young Larry Vaughn for the Book of Quint?
So, I mean, for this, you're right. He is an old hat to the politician thing. And so I again try to copy his voice. But how does he react to these sort of things? Between the scene on the ferry and the scene at the council meeting after the Kintner boy, there's 2 lines that kind of hit me. And of course, there's the one that everybody can quote of like, you say barracuda. People say, huh? What? You say shark, and we're going to have a panic on our hands on the 4th of July. So there's a little bit of a finesse to him. There's this polished whatever, but there's this grin. There's this little like, I know more than you. I'm better than you. I can hire you. I've already bought you sort of smarm or whatever. Yeah. So but you just make that younger. And for me, I just have to lighten my voice a bit and I can kind of sit there. It's almost Jack Nicholson-y in a little bit.
Yeah.
But the other line is like, only 24 hours was the other one that like clued me into this of like, we have this like, I'm going to put this fire out and there's this, but it's always this grin until you get, of course, into the hospital scene of like, my kids were on that beach too. Yeah. That bit where he actually shows up. He's shaky. He's this and that. But every other time you see him, he's always just like, Mr. Quint. He has this confidence that's built from money.
Yes.
And it's great. I love his character in a way that you can be like, fuck that guy, but fun. Like, I like seeing him.
That's some of my favorite parts of the audiobook are the chapters with him and Quint. It's just right there. It's unbelievable. There's so much, not just tension, but it's yin and yang. You got Quint, who's a man of fewer words, but he's kind of beaten down by life, and and then you have a guy who's always got a plan, and he's on the higher end, and it's just that he's got a plan behind the plan behind the plan,
right? And
it's just wonderful.
We can almost have it like a difference between like the blue collar hard, like again it says in the book of like being like, I don't need this blue collar hero crap. Yeah. You have Quint being incredibly blue collar, Like you would never see him behind a desk.
Yes.
As opposed to Larry Vaughn, who, as you say, he does have plans upon plans upon plans.
Yeah.
But he's doing it all in handshakes. He's doing it all in, oh, yes, it's perfectly fine. Don't you worry. We all got it handled. I have people on it, you see. That sort of thing.
Yes. It's great.
I wish I had something like I pulled from this, but I just tried to copy as best I can the performances that came before me. In those sort of ways of like this.
But that's what the magic is that it's seamlessly you can I said that I always had the benefit where other writers do not have this benefit. When I was writing this novel, when people encounter the reading, they have a visual of what these characters look like. So I didn't have to waste pages or exposition talking about what they look like. I can just say Quint and everybody knows, right? So it's just and so you also had the benefit of the actors that came before, and people are kind of have expectations, so you're just kind of filling in those gaps.
Well, it kind of goes both ways as well. I'd be curious for someone who has been like, I've never seen Jaws, I don't know Jaws, I know it's about a shark. Like, and I picked up, this, or I picked up the Peter Benchley book, and then I picked up Book of Quint, and then I went to this, or in whatever order, and how that might affect. Because I wanted this to be a companion piece to the movie as much as possible. Because as much as I would want to be like, this is Jon Waters' audiobook, it would, whatever. It wouldn't get me the job, obviously, and two, it doesn't pay homage to anything that I love as a kid or love now. Or what you have written. So that doesn't do me any favors. I think for me, it's better to be like, let's lean in as hard as we can, as best as we can, into the characters that are already there. The people that have watched this movie probably every Sunday or every month of their life, being like, oh, good, TNT's has Jaws on. Great. Like, I hope it just becomes this like seamless, like we have this book, this wonderful book, and you can just listen to it and then watch Jaws and have more of an appreciation, be like, oh, this is cool, this has this and this and that, and makes so much more sense, and this line is there, and that thing has this, and that's why he has this. Oh my God.
It's like a refreshing new experience, It's just like, it's like 50 years later, that was what it's kind of, that's the same thing when I was sacrificing with the writing. It wasn't about, I want to show you how brilliant I can write this piece,
Right, for your first book.
Right. It was not about how many big words I could use. It was really just about, let's get the story right and let's let it just flow out the right way. And that's how your performance is. And it's just, that is what almost the story required is you rose to that moment, that the moment that we were at is where you where the magic is found, and you were able to rise to the occasion. And that's what's wonderful here. And I just really do believe, and there's higher forces than us in the land watching and listening now. And I just believe this audiobook is going to convince people to move forward with what could be the Book of Quint on the silver screen. I just truly
here's hoping.
Yeah, here's hoping, exactly. But even if it doesn't, we have this wonderful, wonderful audiobook. And I want to go into the third teaser trailer right now for the Book of Quint. That introduces Larry Vaughn. And this I wanted to highlight the refined and up-and-coming politician heard in the Book of Quint, and juxtaposed with the visuals of a cornered man fighting to control the narrative in Amity Hospital at the midway point of Jaws. So let's all go and watch this right now, and we'll come right back.
Nobody cares because there is no proof. I wanted to remind you that when you go out there and start working, your work stays out there. I don't want to see one photo, not one fish strung up, no poses for trophies, no celebrations. You catch them, you kill them, you leave them out there. This will never be your island, Mr. Quint. This is my island, and I allowed you to be here. Never forget that.
There you have it. So with those three teaser trailers, we actually have a good handle on, this is an audiobook unlike anything the Jaws universe has ever seen. And it's very, very exciting, very exciting. So I want to ask you, Jon, I want to thank you for coming on. But
Thank you for having me.
What is absolutely, and it's been a pleasure. What is next for the great Jonathan Waters? What is next?
Well, the next several things that are coming out are a lot to do with Royal Guard Publishing, which produces a lot of adult romances, as they
Okay.
are, where I get to work with a female narrator a lot of the time, very talented female narrators. And I'm always looking for the next thing. My favorite thing to say is my next favorite book is the next one.
Okay.
So I'm always just hunting for that next particular thing. If you have a book, I'm more than happy to be talked to. You can find me at www.jonwatersvoiceover.com, Jon Waters voiceover.com, and you can find all my stuff that I've ever really done. And if you're only catching this through your ears, you can see what I look like and be like, oh, maybe he should just, be behind the microphone, or not. I'll be in a movie again. That'll be great. But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on. I know it's a lot of fantasy and things that are going on. I got some Roman history books coming out, and I think a Western that should be coming out sometime in the summer.
Oh,
I
not
believe.
bad. All right.
So,
All right. So, and they can
time.
find you by just searching Jonathan Waters on Audible, and all your entire catalog comes up.
Yep.
Right?
There is Jon Waters, Jon Waters, that'll get you like 15 or 20
Yes.
that are me.
Yeah.
But if you do Jonathan Waters, the whole thing, you will get like, oh, there's the 350 he was talking about. Like he wasn't lying to us.
Yes.
And you'll see everything I've done. And
Right.
I've I think last year was the year that I did at least one book in every genre that is available on
It's
Audible.
amazing.
So
Well,
I'm making it happen.
It definitely shows. And you have social media. You're on Instagram, right? And Facebook.
I do at Jon Waters voiceover on Instagram. The Jon Waters on Twitter, and Jon Waters voiceover on Facebook. So, and it should look like just a circle with a gold JW on there. It might it might say on there being like, I got great oral from jonwatersvoiceover.com. If it does say that, then that's totally me. And you can order shirts and things.
Well, I just think that if you're out there and you're looking for a narrator, or if you're looking for excellent narration in future audiobooks, look up Jonathan Waters. We're rolling this audiobook out to the world. It's going to be around for many years to come. And the Watch Jaws Again for the First Time 2025 campaign is challenging everyone out there to listen to Jon's performance and then rewatch Jaws for the new experience. But what has happened here? Jon's performance. We now watch the prequel to Jaws in the theater of our minds. And I have to really stress that for 14 and a half hours, Jon, you take us into the water with the survivors of the USS Indianapolis, and then you take us to a pre-tourist industry, Amity Island, all while breathing life back into Quint. It's, we never know what the future has in store will Mr. Spielberg take on this project? Maybe John Williams scoring a new addition to the cinematic Jaws universe with a film version, but this is, at this point in time, this is all left to the fates. And what this is right now, this audiobook that you see behind me over here, the new cover, this is the highest level that we can take it ourselves as faithful fans of Jaws. And I have to thank Jonathan Waters. I have to thank you because your loyalty and patience in waiting and staying by my side, by this project, standing by this book that was so important. It was so special. You and I both know what we had to go through, and at times things were looking grim. It was
Right.
it was the knowledge in my mind and for me to stay positive that your acting talent needed to be brought to the world in this form of the Book of Quint. I've really felt strong about that, and it would never have been possible if it wasn't for you, because I really focused on what I heard, and I said, this has to be, the world has to hear this version of the Book of Quint. And so I really want to thank you from myself, not just as the author, but as a fan of the film of Jaws. I want to thank you, and I want to thank from all of those out there in the Jaws obsession, a bravo and a job well done.
Thank you, sir. I couldn't have done it, obviously, without you.
Yeah.
So give
Thank
yourself a round of applause, man. You put in the work, the hard work. I don't know. I built some of the walls on that awesome foundation that you made. So
I appreciate it.
You rock, dude.
Awesome. And I don't think I don't think we've even scratch the surface on the potential here. So I'm excited, and I want to thank you for coming on board the Jaws Obsession.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Take care, man.
And would like to thank Jonathan Waters for that appearance. A great interview. Boy, what a talent. What a talent. We are lucky to have him here on the Jaws Obsession, and we are lucky to have him expanding the Jaws universe as narrating the audiobook for the Book of Quint. So those three trailers that you saw, the three trailers that you saw during the interview, those trailers collectively, those three trailers in the 1 month since they went on, they have been viewed over 200,000 times between all three. There is an interest and there's an excitement in expanding the Jaws universe as we know it with the Book of Quint. That what it does, it provides us with a nice little snapshot into the quality the effort that was put into this audiobook, but also when you combine it with the imagery of Jaws, it really punches home the point that we are trying to make, that this entire broadcast was founded upon, was expanding the Jaws universe in a way that no one ever has done in the past. Before we check out here, one of the things I wanted to cover was that we are still demonetized here through YouTube and all the podcast platforms that this is that the show is broadcasted on. And I have done that for a specific reason, probably to my detriment, because I do believe that if you are monetized, that you do get preferential treatment in the algorithm, that in the recommendations, in the various timelines. So, but being demonetized was very important to me, in that I wanted the product to be free to enjoy, is for anybody that's out there, but also commercial free. Commercial free is very important in these. If you listen to the past episodes, when I'm trying to make a point or we're trying to run into a complicated set of details, or sometimes emotional set of details, to try to pay tribute to someone that contributed to Jaws and the making of Jaws, that I didn't want to see a commercial just pop up in the middle of that. And when you're monetized, you don't have control over that. So that was very important to me. But because we are not monetized, that this is the one chance. This is a chance where, with the audiobook, that you will get to support what we are doing here through Amity Point Publishing. And when you do listen to the audiobook of Quint, when you go to, if for all the Audible subscribers, you get the 1 free credit a month with your subscription. Or if you're on Spotify, you get the 15 hours of listening for your premium subscription every month. Just so happens the audiobook to the Book of Quint is 14 hours and 23 minutes long, and that's perfect that you can listen to that one allotment of those credit hours that you get through Spotify. So when you do select to listen to the audiobook of Quint on any of these platforms, with the audiobook to the Book of Quint on any of these platforms, what you're doing is you're directly supporting us here through Amity Point Publishing, but also the Living Sharks Museum in Westerly, Rhode Island. That, remember when Wendy Benchley, when allowed us to take the book into publication, that the request was that we donate 10% of profits to shark research and conservation. Well, 10% of what is coming in from the audiobook will go to the Living Sharks Museum in Westerly, Rhode Island. Keith down there and we have a partnership going. It's great. He's got a gift shop. He already has T-shirts there. If you go to the Living Sharks Museum website, you can find the link in the description of this broadcast, that you will see there's a Book of Quint page. And also down there, the Book of Quint is now part of the Jaws 50th anniversary exhibit that he has going on down there. So that is also part of what we are doing here, is we are supporting the Living Sharks Museum, the education of sharks to the public, to schools, everything they do down there, I'm a very big fan of. So that's very important to me as well. But the third aspect is that when you choose to listen to the audio book for the Book of Quint, what you are doing is you are joining a virtual petition, a growing metric that we have here, that we started, as what I wanted to show in concrete numbers. We want to signal to Amblin, to Universal Studios, And with all full disclosure, my agent, Bill Pettit at the William Pettit Agency, he's had meetings with executives at some of these companies, Universal, Amblin, and we are on their radar, that they are seeing what's going on, and should the numbers be able to show the intensity and the excitement behind this groundswell, this startup that we had here, which is the Jaws obsession, but going into 2025 with the 50th anniversary of Jaws, it's reaching a fever pitch. There's going to be a lot of excitement about celebrating the legacy that is Jaws, but one of the big questions will be what's coming next? What is about the next 50 years? And that's what we have here. We have something lining up where everybody can galvanize behind something that actually can materialize. And we can actually show them that there is a movement happening here with this audiobook to the Book of Quint, by showing those numbers, by showing the excitement, as well as the reviews. All of your reviews are very important. Wow, 5-star reviews, 85% on the Book of Quint for Amazon. And we're going to see hopefully we'll see the same intensity, the great reviews that came in for the book, we're going to see for the audiobook. If you could go on whatever platform you're listening on, remember those reviews are very important. Not only do they help with the algorithm, but they also help show to these executives at these companies that there is support for fan support for a prequel to Jaws. Now, with that, for this episode 86 of the Jaws Obsession, the audiobook for the Book of Quint has now premiered, and we are officially declaring the Watch Jaws Again for the First Time campaign live 2025. I will be presenting this campaign in a full presentation live in Martha's Vineyard for Amity Week 2025. That's going to be June, the back half of Amity Week. That's going to be from, I will be on island from June 27th to June 29th. And I have been invited back there for Edgartown by Edgartown Books. Matthew there is bringing me in. We are going to have a full presentation about watching Jaws again for the first time, 2025. Very exciting. With that, thank you very much for listening. This has been episode 86, the audiobook, the Book of Quint premiere. Thank you.
Show me the way to go home. I'm tired, I want to go to bed. I had a little think about an hour ago, and it's gotten right to my head. Wherever I may roam, by land or sea or home.
The movie Jaws is copyrighted property of Universal Studios. Any references and sampling from the movie Jaws in this episode is intended to fall within Section 107 of the Copyright Act. The copyrighted materials are fairly used for the purposes of criticism, comment, reporting, teaching, and research. The materials used here are protected by the fair use guidelines of Section 107 of the Copyright Act. All rights reserved to the copyright owners. So that concludes episode 86. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Please visit jawsob.com. And remember to like, follow, subscribe to this broadcast, this episode on whatever platform you're listening on. Hello to the viewers on YouTube. And also, we have, I think I understand now what needs to be done as we go forward for the rest of this year. We are going to bring a new dimension here to the Jaws obsession. It's going to be a lot of fun. The next episode is, it's going to trigger a series of episodes that I want to lead to discovery and the Jaws analytics going into the movie like we've never done before. So with that, we're going to all need to listen to the audiobook to the Book of Quint to get on the same page, because we're going to start something very different and very new here on the Jaws Obsession coming up. So I'd like to thank everybody for your time and listening. It's been a journey, and this is episode 86. And on to episode 87. Thank you very much.